Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you, as always, for joining us. My name is Patrick Cummings. I am joined, as I always am, by Ben Bergeron. We also have on the line from the West Coast, friend of the show, Cole Sager. How the heck are you, Cole?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
What we've got today? We've got a few listener questions to kick off the episode. One about lifting heavy and competing into our 60s. The other about the difference between CNS and muscle fatigue. Our workout is going to be, we're going to talk about the CrossFit Open, specifically if there's value in it for those who aren't competing. And we will wrap the episode up with a round of recommendations. Each of us will give you all out there a few things to check out that we have been enjoying lately. Ready, boys?
Let's go.
Good.
All right.
Let's go to work.
Our warm-up. We start each episode with your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors are how we eat, how we move, how we think, connect, and recover. We have 2 questions this round, one in our move category, one in our recover. Move category, this is the question, can masters athletes and women in particular, because females have a propensity for knee issues, continue to train and lift heavy well into our 60s? I'm particularly interested to know if you think any movements are off limits to go heavy as we get older. I love CrossFit, I love competing, and I feel like it's part of my identity, but I want to find a way to continue to do it for the long haul. Cole, you're our guest. I'll let you go first if you've got an answer.
Yeah, I love this question. I would say absolutely you can. And actually, I think that it would be vital that you do, especially find ways to continue to lift heavy and move your body. I mean, there's just a general rule of thumb. Like if you stop using it, you're going to lose it faster than you want to. And then I think that the other thing that we play into here is if you look at like a lot of the physiology behind aging, you got to think and consider what we lose first. And that tends to be speed. So like me personally, when I punch out another 30 years or so, I know that the things that I'm going to lose first is my ability to move quickly, my agility and my speed, my accuracy, things like that. So if, when I ask myself, like, how am I going to change and adapt? I might take out some of those movements that require explosiveness, that require speed, and I'll start moving with slower movements, a little bit more hypertrophic manners of lifting, particularly because we can still at least do a good job of keeping muscle tissue, which is really good for being able to continue to have good metabolic health. It's a really good marker for good metabolic health moving forward, especially as we age. And then also continuing to get under heavy load and lift weights also continues to build bone density and all of the good things that allow us to continue to move. And, we can run the gauntlet then of doing isometric holds and tempo lifts and strengthening ligaments and tendons and all of those things. So I absolutely think that lifting heavy well into your 60s, 70s, and 80s should absolutely be done. I think you're just going to have to tweak how and what movements you're doing.
Love that. Yeah. I would double down on that. We were joking about doubling down before, but
I think we're spend the entire episode doubling down on everything Cole said.
Yeah. It's a big shocker, right? We've been training together and working together for over a decade. So I think it's going to be weird if we have really I hope we have some differing opinions, but I think we're going to see more eye to eye than anything else. And I mimic and encourage the exact same things, which is, maybe just pull on a couple things that Cole said there. Lifting heavy, absolutely. I think the word you used was vital. And I love that. It's a necessity. I would see it as a necessity. I love how Cole said that the thing that you're going to lose is speed. And I thought Cole, still being a world-class athlete, was like, so I'm going to work on my speed as I get older. And I was like, dude, you say that to me when you're a little bit older, but because it's right. It is the type of thing that's going to go away. And that's why I would, lifting heavy, really key there. First, heavy, you're going to be able to lift heavier doing the power lifts, the slow lifts, bench, press, dead, front and back squat. Those are the ones that you want to lean into the most. And if you're going to shy away from something, it'd probably be the Olympic lifts for a number of reasons. Risk factors go up huge. If you catch a low clean, you break a wrist, that type of thing. Shoulder injury, it's just not, the risk reward goes away. And a big part of that is, as Cole said, you lose the speed. So I also love the relative aspect, not only to heavy relative to movements. I don't think people should be lifting heavy isometric bicep curls. Like, that's not a great thing to do. I don't think we should be lifting heavy Olympic lifts. I don't think that's a great thing to do. But heavy, yes, with the slow, big compound lifts, absolutely. As Cole said, there's so much that benefits from that, from the metabolic to the bones. And this is, Peter T has been really loud and vocal about this as well, is in terms of bone density. I grew up as a strength and conditioning and personal trainer learning that bone density mattered. Still does. Peter T says it still does. That hasn't changed. What I learned, though, was the biggest thing we can do to benefit bone density was impact training, running, jumping. That impact is the thing that improved bones. That's not proven to be the case. That does help, but not nearly as much as the muscles, as Cole said, the muscles pulling on the ligaments and tendons, which then pull on the ends of the bones, essentially trying to break them. If you think about what that's happening, think about like your bicep contracting, it's trying to pull on the humerus and pull on the bones of the arm, trying to like bend them. And that resistance against the bending of the muscles, ligaments, tendons, the shear force resistance is actually what creates the greatest bone density. So people go, okay, but like, I'm not gonna have osteoporosis. I'm not gonna have that. And why does bones matter even that much anyway? And as Peter Attia has this, I'm getting this big Peter Attia kick. It's like, whatever. As he said, and I say that because I don't have the science. I've learned this from him, that if you fall and break your hip past the age of 65, which this listener is asking about, if you fall and break your hip past the age of 65, your all-cause mortality goes up by 30%. Wow. Meaning that your chance of being dead within a year goes up by 30%. Or said another way, 3 people out of 10 that break their hip will be dead. Like, whoa! Like, that's not fear-mongering. That's not trying to but it's a bones matter. It's because of that.
Absolutely.
So then the next thing, I guess, our question is Cole, what do you think about her, what she said, like knees in particular?
Yeah, I think that really becomes a very specific thing to both, I get where she's coming from on the female side, where they have a propensity for some knee issues. It's better understanding the anatomy of how hip and alignment of the female anatomy kind of exists, and then writing better programs and accessory pieces in order to support good mobility in both the hips and the knees and the ankles. Like, you can't, it's a chain reaction that goes on. So, you have to consider all of those things. But like, I kind of referred to it as like doing a lot of isometric holds, doing some tempo work, where you're really spending a lot of time taking and exhausting the muscles, but not with sheer force, and bringing a lot of blood flow to those areas in order to strengthen the tendons and the ligaments. And then I think, again, I'm not there. I got another 30 years to figure it out, but I think would help with knee pain and hip pain in particular.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think particularly like people shy away from working the muscles at all if there's been an injury or anything else. And as Cole said, there's plenty of ways to train that. And the idea is like, get the blood flow first and foremost. Isometric holds, a great way to build strength as well without bringing anything through a range of motion. And I think there's a little bit of confusion in the space maybe about this. Cole nailed it. He's like, it's the hip angle. It's called the Q angle. So women have wider hips. So their knees by default sort to come in. And that's why they have more knee injuries, but the knee injuries aren't happening in the gym. The knee injuries are happening on everyday walking of life and in sport, because they're not, the gym is the place to train to resist against that. So it's like that, because women have a more propensity for knee injuries, the requirement for them in the gym goes up. We need to train it. So as long as
they have a higher demand.
So as long as we have the good, I'll call it technique for lack of a better word, but right movement patterns, where their knees are doing what their knees are supposed to be doing in the gym. It's an additive, not a subtractive for that.
Yep. And that's where I go back with that tempo work, is where you can really control that. You can really make sure that you're moving in the right planes of movement and right patterns in order to strengthen those without.
Cool. When you say tempo, what do you? Maybe some people don't know what that means. When you say tempo?
Like a tempo work would be, like one that a movement that I really like for knee health is Bulgarian split squats. And so I'll do Bulgarian split squats, and I will focus on a tempo of the movement where you are lowering yourself eccentrically, slowly. You can pick a plethora of different tempos. It could be a 3-second down. It could be a 5-second down. Small pause at the bottom. Make sure that you're in a good position, and then a tempo up as well. And the great thing about tempo work is it is a really good way to activate muscle tissue and motor units without having to lift heavy loads, because the muscles are going to fatigue over time of having to control that pace, that it's going to start burning. Like, tempo does not mean easy. It's going to start burning. And then as time goes on, that's going to recruit more and more motor units as the muscles have to fire in order to continue to hold that same pace as the muscle fatigue. So again, I love tempo work, especially in accessory, in order to add on to a main training program.
Love it. All right, let's move on to our question in the recover bucket. It's from Alexis. I'm wondering how to differentiate in real time between CNS fatigue and muscular fatigue, and if the recovery process for the two varies. Does the CNS undergo the same alarm resistance exhaustion process of adaptation that muscles do under stress? In muscles, we can feel stiffness or soreness to indicate where we are adapting from our training, but are there any indicators that we could use to gauge our CNS recovery? Lastly, as a coach at an affiliate, is there any advice you would give to guide my athletes in this regard? So maybe define some terms in there too. Ben, if you want to go first that time.
Yeah, so Alexis is saying the alarm resistance and give me the last piece. Exhaustion. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's considered the general adaptation syndrome. That's how the gas principle, and it's not specific to muscles or CNS or anything else. It's actually the way your body responds to stress. So this could be the same type of thing as like life stress. It could be the same thing as work or relationships or muscles. It's just the way your body responds to stress. I actually think that's really poorly named. The resistance one isn't resistance. It's actually recovery. It's the opposite of that. And I don't think it spells out what happens to muscles very well at all. I think that the muscle one, the much better one, is that the adaptation to training curve that we talk a lot about, which is there is the stimulus, there is an exhaustion, then there is the recovery, and then there's the supercompensation. That's one makes a lot more sense. Now, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This isn't wrong, right? But understanding in terms of the specifics of those three mechanisms. Yep. It's the same thing with your CNS. And if we need to define that's your central nervous system. And the central nervous system basically works in two autonomous pathways, which is the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. We talk about this a lot on this show. The parasympathetic is the rest and repair, and the sympathetic is the fight or flight. What Alexis is referring to is when you go into a stressful environment, whether it is an ice bath, whether it is public speaking, whether it is a workout, or it is almost getting in a car accident, your body flips from the rest and repair to fight or flight. That is that first phase. Then from there, as you work your way through that phase, this is the big thing, as you work your way through that phase, you start to recover from it. And that's where you're supposed to go back into the parasympathetic, rest and repair. If you don't do that, then you get into the exhaustion, is what happens, where you get into this cycle of, it's just like you're constantly in there and you move from acute to chronic. And that's what we have to be aware of. And that's why, when we go to the CrossFit Games, Cole busts his ass for 4 or 5 days and goes through a dozen to 15 events, and he knows he's shot because his muscles are sore, his hands are ripped, and his back is tired. I haven't done any working out. I've just coached him. So I don't have those things, but I've been in the same stressful, quote, stressful environment. I also need to take the time to recover. Otherwise, there's going to be what's called a parasympathetic lashback. Now, these aren't as obvious. They're not as glaring as you can point to, oh, it hurts to go upstairs. My legs are so sore. So people bypass them because it seems more not real. It's kind of the same thing where people didn't say like 10 years ago, people were like, there's no such like thing as too little, like I got too little sleep. No, you're just lazy, like whatever. It's like, these are as real. They're as real as the actual physical ones. So if her question actually is, hopefully that's defining the terms. And if her question actually is, are there ways to identify it? Absolutely. And in the training environment, you can do a wearable that can help. But as we've talked about this before, the number one thing is your eagerness and readiness to train. Like, are you excited to go to the gym? And this is for our community, because if you talk to a couch potato, they're never excited. So it doesn't work for them. We're talking about work for people that like, they get excited to go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week. Their hardest days are their rest days, right? That type of person. If they're not excited to go to the gym, they're probably in that exhaustive state. And it's another way of saying they're overtrained. So that's the easiest way to do it. The other ways are lack of sleep, change in attitude, irritability, change in mood. There's just like a bunch of different other indicators that we have we're tipping into the overtraining stage, which is something for overtrained is the same thing as under recovered. So it might not be that you're doing too much training. It might not be that you're doing enough recovery. That's just like, we have to kind of play with that. Cole trains bonkers amounts, but he also puts a lot of effort into recovery. You can't just have one without the other. So having some idea of what those indicators are helps a ton. And really it does something feel off is really the shortcut.
And on the overtraining, on that note, it's a spectrum too, as far as like leading to overtraining. So you can watch yourself go down the spectrum from, having an overloaded day where you worked really hard and you worked a ton and you overstressed the body. Well, if you wake up and you do that again the next day, like, okay, that's fine. You might get away with that, but now you're starting to kind of overreach the body. And if you continue to do that day over day over day, then that's the spectrum of like, hey, you overloaded the body too many days in a row. And now you're starting to run this gauntlet down towards overtraining. And you'll start to see some of those indicators that Ben was talking about, where like, hey, I was overloaded one day. Well, now at this week, I'm overreaching. And if I did that for a month, I'm overtrained. Like, you need to understand that, hey, you overload the body, read the signs. I'm a little fatigued. I'm a little run down. I didn't sleep well. This is something that I think a lot of people don't fully recognize, that if you overload the body too many days in a row, your sleep is going to start to suffer. I deal with this all the time. Like, if I have a really stressful training day that also had stresses at home and the kids were yelling and, I had to feed a baby in the middle of the night, like, it's really hard for me to get back to sleep, or I just I wake up a lot more. So if you're having a lot of wakeful bouts, maybe that's a sign and something to, and again, wearables can help with that. Breath work. There's this really cool protocol that I read about a year ago or so. I think it was from Brian McKenzie. I think he's a breath work guy.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right. And it was essentially wake up first thing in the morning, take 5 deep breaths. And then after your 5th, inhale really deep, time how long it takes to let your breath out. And it's essentially just a signal of your CO2 tolerance, which is also just a signal of how well your body handles stress. It's just a good indicator. You mark that when you feel like throughout a month, and you'll get a good baseline of what that looks like for you. That might be a good indicator to use in real time. And then one of the things that I love to use, just a practical tool when I get into the gym, like, hey, am I experiencing peripheral fatigue or muscle fatigue or central fatigue, is I will get on an aerobic machine, the rower. I usually use the Echo bike. I feel like it's the one that gives me the most feedback. And I'll warm up well for 12 to 15 minutes. A nice, easy bike. And again, I've come into the gym. I'm a little tired. I don't know, how hard should I train? It's like, I don't have the gumption, but my body feels okay. But mentally, I don't have the edge. I will get on the bike for 12 to 15 minutes. nice, easy pace, feel like, okay, I feel like the body is loosened up. And then on the minute for 3 minutes, I will do a 5 to 7 second sprint just to see how much power output I can put into the Echo bike. I'm not doing it for a long period of time, but I've done it so long and for so many years that I have a good marker of if I can hit a certain wattage, hey, I think that I'm ready to train. And it's a very good indicator. If I'm 200 watts below and I'm giving everything I have, I'm fatigued. I don't have it today. Let's pull back a little bit. Let's do some things that aren't demanding a ton of stressful engagement from the body. There's still lots of great ways to train the body. I mean, we just talked about it. You can do some tempo work, do some isometric work. Like you can do a lot of other things, maybe some easy, slow cardio or something like that can continue to train. But like, hey, that's a good indicator. Like, hey, maybe I'm not recovering. I should pull back just a touch.
Love that. Yeah. And I can speak firsthand. This is what Cole does. Like this is how he gets ready every day. It's a takeoff of an old test that people used to use, which was a grip strength test. It's a really good indicator of CNS fatigue, is how much grip strength do you have today versus past days. And if that's off, you're off. I think it's really also worth kind of highlighting a little bit, as Cole was saying, is like stressful. That doesn't mean that you did Murph the day before. You know, our elite athletes, Cole, you know, they have to take time off. This is not necessarily now because it's just they've lowered the stress levels of it. But back in the day, the Open, when only the top 20 athletes would move on through their region in the Open, if you had a bad event, you had to, most athletes were redoing events.
It was a long 5 weeks.
So it's fine. So right, a long 5 weeks. And here's the deal is like, this is one workout a day, like sometimes lasting like 7-8 minutes. This is, compared to what they normally do, this is a walk in the park. And they're not physically sore, but after that Open, we had to program in a recovery protocol. You had to program in at least a week to get back to normalcy, because otherwise you've already burned down half the house and you got to let it come back a little bit. So stress, as Cole said, it's like stress. It's not the volume of training, which everyone assumes, which is what Alexis recognized, which my muscles are sore. There's something else going on. And that's what Cole says. Like, I feel good. You know, I'm not sure if meaning muscles. My muscles, I'm not sore, but man, something I don't know. There's just this weird kind of thing hanging around me. Like, let's see if this is real. Oh, nope. I'm hitting power outputs. This is good. You know, I just need to shake something off. Yeah. But also what I love, Cole, is like, nope, it's not there. Doesn't mean don't train. This is what so many people are like, oh, HRV is low, recovery scores in the red, stay out of the gym. That's not what that means.
I train with low HRV all of the time.
Yes.
And still get great training, and my HRV recovers even when I continue to train. If all the markers are indicating, hey, you should probably continue to try to find some way to train. So I love that you said.
Imagine if you only went to work on your business when you were like really psyched and really pumped to work on your business.
Good luck.
I'm not gonna parent today. I'm not gonna parent today.
Yeah.
My recovery's not there. You still do the work.
Absolutely.
You just change.
Ben, real quick before we wrap this question up, the last bit of Alexis's question: as a coach and an affiliate, is there any advice you'd give to guide my athletes in this regard? Is that the role of the coach or the affiliate to be able to have these kinds of conversations, or is that too much, too deep, and it's the responsibility of the athlete to be able to do the work that we just kind of talked about?
No, it's the responsibility of the coach. So cool. Yesterday was a Monday, and it was the first Monday after school vacation week, which a lot of people travel. So when I briefed the workout, we were doing a quarterfinal workout. We're doing cycling clean and jerks. Huge CNS demand. Like, I don't want you, like big weights, you know, moving really, really fast. The way I briefed the workout to the class was, if you were away last week, if you came on a plane late last night, or you've been eating at restaurants all week, or ... gave like 3 or 4 different like things. I was like, let today be a transitional day for you. You're here. You did the thing. Just use light weights and just let's move for 10 minutes. Don't burn the house down. You're not going to be this isn't the way to get yourselves fitter. So is that the role of the coach? That's exactly the role of a coach. That's what a coach is there to do, is to keep you from making the mistakes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for those questions. If you want to get a question into the queue, head to www.chasingexcellence.email and get on the free newsletter list. We send out a link to a form that you can submit your questions in, and we look forward to it. We thank you in advance. We're going to be back in just a minute with our workout, which is going to be all about the CrossFit Open. But first, a quick word of thanks from a few sponsors. We're brought to you this week by a new sponsor, the Washington Post. I don't have to tell you that we live in an age of endless noise. You feel it every time you pick up your phone. That's why it's so important to find and have sources of information you can trust, which is why we're excited to have the Washington Post sponsoring the show. You can get yourself 80% off a subscription to the Post by heading to washingtonpost.com/excellence. If you're anything like me, you care about what's going on in the world, and especially in the realm of health and wellness. We'll skip the Facebooking and head straight to the trusted journalists and experts at the Washington Post. They'll help you go deeper on the news that matters most to you. Their journalists bring you the facts and provide clarity about what's happening in health and wellness, including coverage about mental health, nutrition, fitness, aging and longevity, chronic illness, all while debunking health myths and fads. And since you clearly like listening, it's worth noting that you can actually listen to articles in addition to reading them, so you can tackle your to-do list and catch up on the news at the same time. If you're ready to get news you can trust, head to washingtonpost.com/excellence and save 80% off their typical subscription price. We're also brought to you this week by Cozy Earth. Folks, let's talk sleep. More specifically, let's talk one of the best things you can do to optimize your sleep: make your bedroom a sanctuary. That means getting the temperature right, banishing screens of all kinds, and kitting out your bed to maximize comfort. Cue Cozy Earth. Head to CozyEarth.com to check out their wide range of bedding that will prove to be a game changer for your next night of sleep. And make sure you use the code EXCELLENCE to save yourself 35% off your purchase. Cozy Earth offers an array of bedding products that will genuinely transform your sleep. Their products are incredibly soft and they help regulate temperature, which is key for a good night's sleep. You'll wake up feeling refreshed and ready for work, workouts, or whatever life throws at you. Believe me, incorporating Cozy Earth products into your self-care routine can enhance not only your sleep quality, but your overall wellness. It's an investment in yourself. Plus, all products come with a 100-night sleep trial and 10-year warranty. So why not treat yourself or someone you love, remember Mother's Day is right around the corner, to the ultimate comfort and indulgence with Cozy Earth bedding and sleepwear. Again, that's code EXCELLENCE for 35% off at CozyEarth.com.
Cole, have you tried Cozy Earth?
No, I'm literally about to
Dude, you got it, dude. Go for Genesee, for real, for Mother's Day. Get it for Genesee.
Really? Right,
the sheets are like, I'm not like a sheets guy. I'm telling you, man.
She is.
Yeah,
Ben actually hits the snooze alarm when he's in the Cozy.
I don't go that far, but yeah.
But the guy on blast.
That's cool. I didn't know you could listen to the newspaper too. That's cool. The future is awesome.
Dude, amazing.
All right, gentlemen, our workout. This is a question from Mark. He is a premium member. As I mentioned, www.chasingexcellence.email. You can also join us as a premium member, get ad-free episodes, get more conversations, more content, and some challenges that we're running there. So definitely check that out. This is from Mark. He says, how do you recommend non-CrossFit competitors, i.e. we train CrossFit, but not for the sport of CrossFit, view the CrossFit Open? Fun with friends versus your yearly fitness check-in versus something else. I always hear people say it's the best way to measure your fitness, and I just want you to get your take. If it is not the best way to measure your fitness, do you have some other recommendations or things you do periodically to see where you are, or see how you are doing? So I'd love your first thoughts. We're just coming out of quarterfinals. Cole, I'm curious how that went. So we're a little bit outside of the Open, but I think this is one of those proverbial questions that CrossFitters have often, and we haven't really tackled it in a little while. So especially in light of the changes in the format, what they did sort of this year that was different than others, which I think we can get into if it's interesting. I like this question because it does feel like Opens the last few years are different than it looks like Opens this year and going forward. So maybe our answers change given the recent changes, but no more preamble. I'd love your thoughts.
As far as assessing fitness, I don't believe that the Open is the best way to assess fitness. And the reason why is because it's a moving target. You don't actually know what, unless you are redoing these workouts as a benchmark over and over each year, the Open in and of itself is not the best indicator of your fitness. Now, again, I just mentioned benchmarks. That could be a great way to assess your fitness. You always have to take into things into account, some of the recovery things that we were talking about earlier. Am I fatigued? Am I not? Has my central nervous system swayed one way or the other when I did my benchmark? There's a lot of things to assess there, and we can dive into that a little bit more. But I think that the Open is really truly about engagement with community. It's about connecting with your community, having fun, throwing down, and challenging yourself. I think that's the fun thing. It is really intimidating for a lot of people to make the decision to enter the ring, to jump into the arena. And I think that that's one of the coolest parts about the Open is like, hey, like toss out the $20 and let's get in the arena together and let's throw down, let's have some fun. Let's compete with our friends. I think it's a fun indicator to like figure out if you're fitter than your friends. Like that's really fun. Great. But as far as like a true fitness assessment, I think there's a little bit more of a protocol that I would indicate or want to go through for an athlete and for myself.
So I am like, I missed the name again. I'm sorry. Was it Joe?
Mark.
Mark. Okay. I knew it was a normal name. Okay. I knew it was a normal name.
Normal name. You just insulted, I don't know, everybody named John or Mark.
Or Pat or Ben.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm in the camp. Like I'm not here to compete in the sport of CrossFit. I don't think I'm with Cole. I don't think it's a very useful tool. I should say I don't think it's the most useful tool to assess your fitness. I think it can be a tool, but as Cole said, it's a moving target. Did your weakness pop up this year that didn't pop up the last year? There's different numbers of participants. I know they have percentage wise. I think most of our athletes are in masters categories, though. Are you in the later half of your age group rather than the first early part? Like, there's too many moving variables. I think Cole's spot on. Like the breadth and depth of benchmarks for yourself is a better indicator. So, in terms of what we first have to do is go, well, what is fitness, right? And that's what CrossFit did such a phenomenal job of, which is the work capacity across broad time and modal domains. We think is as elegant of and definitive of a definition as we've ever had. Mm-hmm. The Open is not doing that. Like first off, there isn't even running in it. And I think that any test that doesn't involve the most fundamental of all human movements can't be called a well-rounded test of fitness. So is it a way? Yes. Is it the way? Absolutely not. Do I see it as a beneficial tool to further my fitness journey? No. I see it as a potential stumbling block. I need to, as we just talked about, I need to be able to assess what is the right thing for me to do today. And I am not in the place where I am setting up my year to target towards this one thing. I'm using the gym every day as a vehicle for me to do better outside of the gym. Yep. And if there is movements that I should not be trying because I have not been training them, then I shouldn't try them that day. And that movement goes into load, intensity, or actual movement pattern. Yeah. So this is how, I actually hurt my back bad enough that I had surgery, which was I wasn't feeling awesome. There were pistols programmed in the thing that I was doing. Instead of listening to my body, I went and was like, I'm going to do them anyway. And that forced me, I probably would have happened anyway at some point. So I'm not blaming pistols, but I ended up having a back surgery, 3 months later. So had I listened to my body and gone, this is the right thing for me today, it's not to use a 50-pound dumbbell. I should be using a 35-pound dumbbell today, even though I know I can, using it as an example. I always think that, we have to take this of like, what is zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, and zoom out. Why are we doing this thing in the gym? And as Mark said, I don't compete in the sport of CrossFit. Should I be using this as a thing then the answer to it for him is, in my opinion, is no. Like you should, what purpose does it serve? As Cole said, you're now doing this workout in the gym with other people. They care a lot about it. Go support them. But you should be doing, Mark, what's right for you that day. And if that's not touching a 185 pound barbell because that's what was prescribed. Even though I know you could get that for a couple reps, you would get a more productive workout using 155, then we should use 155. It's like you just zoom out and go, but what's the why? And if you go like, my why for the gym is so I am capable outside, then make sure you're still capable outside. I think that like, I really don't want to get injured. Like I want to be there as a provider and protector for my family, not somebody that needs to take care of me. If I have to go and have another surgery and I'm in a hospital bed for 3 days or in a sling or on medication, like I'm the burden and I don't want anything. I don't want to risk that. So what I want to do is 6 days a week of sweet spot.
Yep.
And if that means no reach, that means no reach. And I'm okay with that. Now, someone like Cole, just so I finish that thought, someone like Cole can't do it. He's at the pinnacle and threshold of human performance. He has to reach. He has to reach. But if I was hang gliding as a hobby, I'm already hang gliding. Like, I don't need to do the crazy weird things. Like, I'm not making money out of this thing. I do it because I like the view and feeling the breeze on my face. Yep. And it like gets me outside. It's a weird example. I don't know anybody that hang glides.
But I really want to now. Like you painted a great picture.
It's the same thing with skiing, right? Skiing. Like I'm not going to go and enter into, all my buddies are entering into a downhill race. Downhill's like the crazy fast one. Like I'm not going to go and do that. Like, could I? Absolutely. Could I compete with them? Yeah. Like I've been skiing a long time and I can do that. But for me, that's not why I do this thing anymore.
Yeah. And let's bounce back really quickly to just like the concept that Mark was also bringing up of like, is this a good way to assess like a fitness check-in, if you will? And one of the things that I really like that Ben said is it can be a stumbling block. Well, guess what? Like I am in the sport, competing at the sport and trying to do it at the highest level possible. And it can be a stumbling block for me. Even for me, it is not a good indicator of my fitness. And actually, a couple of days ago, Ben and I had this conversation before quarterfinals. You know, now that we're on the backside of quarterfinals, is I'm going to do them to the best of my ability, but they're not necessarily going to dictate and change the way that I'm training and the way that I'm trying to gain fitness. Will I calibrate off of them? Sure. But I can't let them be the open workouts, the quarterfinal workouts. It's not a complete test. It doesn't give the full picture of my fitness and what I have been working on over the last 6 months, 7 months, and where I'm going to. So even on that front, on the competitive side, it's still not the best thing to assess, and it can be a stumbling block for athletes.
Yeah, and also with that is where I thought you were going to go with that, Cole, as well, is in terms of it. If you really want to perform, you kind of have to set up your year for this thing, which means that you're going to build and then you're going to peak and then you're going to taper, then you compete and then you're going to recover.
Yeah.
Well, that what people fail to realize there is that necessitates an off season. Now the off season could be 3 or 4 days or it could be 3 or 4 months, but you're setting yourselves up to compete at that one day. Now, here's what. If you're not doing that, you're measuring yourself against people that are doing that. And that's, again, not a great way to assess your fitness is I'm going to go and do this thing for fun. I'm going to go run this 5K for fun. Yet other people are doing it to compete and set up their whole season around this 5K. Yeah. It's going to look like you're not fit.
Yeah, totally.
When that might not be the case at all.
Yep. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who are listening to this, and the thing that matters for them is fitness over time. It's health, like health in the long run and longevity. And that's really, I think, what we should be looking for and assessing. I think that's a better thing to try to, and I think that goes into more of the conversation of what Mark is asking, is like, what are some better ways to assess our fitness and continue to have health, fitness over time? And I think that's an important thing to be thinking about.
Yeah. So to throw that out there, it's one of the ways that we program, because I think that is what is a well-balanced look at certain benchmarks. And then we do 24 of those a year. Every 2 weeks, you get a benchmark. And now, like, okay, one went bad because you were traveling. One went bad because of this. It's not about these 3 individual workouts over a year that dictate, am I getting fitter year over year? It's you have these constant check-ins, these constant data points that you constantly get to go back. What I mean by that is, by the 24 is essentially, except for the open, that's where actually I don't, so it's not 26, but every 2 weeks, except for the open, every 2 weeks, we do a benchmark, and we do it at the same time of year as we did the year before. So in the same month, you're going to be doing fortitude as you did last year. In the same month, because there's ebbs and flows to that as well, right?
Exactly.
In the same month, you're going to do Glenn. In the same month, you're going to do Murph. In the same month, you're going to do Fran. In the same month, you're going to do a 2K row. In the same month, you're going to do a 1 mile run. In the same month, you're going to do, and you start to like, okay. And now to Cole's point, it's like, yes, we're getting this year over year checkpoints. I prefer it year over year over year over year over year, right? What are we doing in a decade, not a year? And then you get like this continuous thing. And if 2 or 3 are down, no big deal. Like that's not a big deal. That's actually would be amazing, right? 2 or 3 are down and 20 plus are up. What we're looking for is just a trend. Are the majority of them right around where they were and some are up? That's it. Like are they around and a couple of them are up? That's what we're looking for.
Ben, one maybe clarifying question to what you were talking about with the open and not wanting to do it because it could be a stumbling block, et cetera. What you described, isn't that basically what you do every day when you walk into the gym? Whether or not you happen to program it yourself or 4 people at CrossFit HQ decided to do it. And I asked that because I actually did, for the first time in many years, I actually sort of informally did the open this year because the gym I go to happened to program them on Fridays and I go to the gym on Fridays. And so I went through that process every single day of saying, okay, I could do the 50-pound dumbbell. I'm going to be smart and do the 35-pound dumbbell, right? So what about the open do you feel is still, I still don't really want to do that because it's going to pull me into a place of possibly doing something I shouldn't be doing. Like what about the open specifically makes it different than, again, if you're just walking to the gym, if I'm just walking to the gym and like, what's on the whiteboard today? How do I feel? What am I going to do? What am I going to modify? Et cetera.
And are we talking about participating or competing in the open? Because I feel like those are 2 different things.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Either or. I'll give you a really concrete example that popped up this year. The dumbbell snatch burpee workout 1. That's what I would, if that was programmed in my gym, that's what I went in and I did that workout. And I threw down hard and I did it as best as I possibly could. Workout 2, my 2 best movements in CrossFit are strict pull-ups and double unders. I've realized though that double unders, 1 out of every 3 double under workouts will kind of bug my Achilles. So it's not every time, but it's frequently enough that it happens. Workout 2 popped up. I had just done well in workout 1. Workout 2 popped up. I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to do double unders anymore. A while ago, about a year ago, last summer. Workout 2 pops up and double under, it's mostly a double under workout. So here's a chance to do really well. If I was doing this different than the class that I normally do in my class, I would have done the workout. I would have gotten pulled in to something that I don't normally do. But I was like, I don't normally do double unders. I'm not going to do them in this workout. So I ran. I ran every round of that instead. I still did the rowing, still did the was it burpees?
Deadlifts.
No, deadlifts. Oh, row, deadlift. Thank you. Yeah. Row, deadlift. And instead of the double under, I ran. And that's where like, I'm not going to let this thing change the way that I feel like I'm on this long-term trajectory for what I'm trying to do. It's no different than any other workout. If it lines up, it lines up. Just like the workouts I program at the gym here. I don't program for me. I program for what I think is the best approach to health. And then there's certain things that I will modify around, just like I encourage everyone to. Remember, like I think that the best way is, we talk about this a lot internally. The saying originally was, program for the best and scale for the rest. And I think it's program for the majority and modify accordingly. It's not about scaling. It's not about making it easier. That's what we've been told. You can make this workout, and if you need to, you can make it easier for other people. Grandma can do Fran because she can do it with a broomstick and ring rows. it's not just about making it easier. It's about modifying it, not just scaling, tailoring it specifically for what is the best thing for Patrick. And that's where coaches come in. Scaling's easy. Like, how do I make this movement easier? So easy. Injury, how do I change it to make this? Cool. But there's other considerations that we need to take into place. That's not just about making it easier. Again, modifying it. You were traveling last week. We're going to modify this workout. Like, we got to change things up specific for you. And if that's a competition, it's really hard to convince someone of that.
And I can even speak to this on the training front if I get into the gym with training partners. And I've had a completely different type of week the week prior than they have. And they're coming in and they're nice and recovered, and I am not. And we're going to do this workout. You come and jump in. It's like, great, awesome. But I shouldn't be doing deadlifts at 405. It's like, actually, I should be doing deadlifts at 405, but we won't get into that. Anyways, but it's like, hey, like there's these movements I probably shouldn't do. I feel really beat up here. Like, I need to modify that. I need to change that in real time and get the stimulus out of the workout, get the good training in, continue to gain the fitness, but it's okay to modify.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, real quick, rapid fire. What would be good? Call them benchmarks, call them measurements. If it's not the open, as you guys have pointed out, what are one or two things? Ben, I know you've got 24 or 12 or 24 different workouts, but if somebody out there was just like, okay, like I'm going to start doing, these three things once every 6 months to see how I'm doing. What are the three things? And maybe Cole, go for it with maybe the competitive athlete side. And then Ben, I'd love your thoughts on just the kind of regular gym population folks.
Oh, I mean, Ben already said it, fortitude. I mean, come on.
All right, well, remind us what fortitude is then.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, fortitude is a great benchmark, one that I have used many, many times, and Ben has utilized with me many times. So that is a great. On the athlete front, I like to look specifically at different planes of movement. So how does my pull look? So, and Ben and I have worked this for long times over the years, but I will find a benchmark that I have done in the past in a competition, and I will look, hey, what involves cycling a barbell and some upper body pulling? So Amanda 45 comes to mind right now. Like, that's a really good one for me that I would use to assess. For most athletes, let's just do Amanda. Like, Amanda would be a good example of that for a competitive athlete. But then I lean on a lot of monostructural work. I'll do a 20-minute bike test. I'll do a 10-minute echo bike test. Go sit on the echo bike for as hard as you can for 10 minutes. You're not going to want to many times in the year. Like, trust me. And then something like a 5K run is probably the length that I probably test the most when it comes to running. I think it has the most carryover to fitness. You can get a little skewed if you try to test a mile or an 800, depending on what energy systems and pathways are better developed in athletes. So I feel like a 5K test is a better example. And yeah, I think those are kind of the first few that come to mind.
Love it. Ben?
As Cole said, a different modality. I think of strength, cardio, and capacity. Strength, like different planes, squat, basically the power lifts that we talked about earlier. Yeah. But if I want three, I would want your squat, your bench press, and your strict pull-ups. I have a really good indicator of like your strength from that. Cardio, give me your 1 mile and your 2K. I know that they're very similar, but different athletes. If you're 6'6" and 270 pounds, your 2K might be very different than your 1 mile. Yes. So between those two, right? And if you're 145 pounds and 5'8", I know what your mile is going to be, and your 2K is going to be the other one off. Mm-hmm. So are they the same domain? Yeah, but they're so varied. Mm-hmm. So if you have a 7 minute in both, that's a much difference than just 7 minute in one of them. And then the next one is, Cole named one of them, the capacity stuff. I want to know your fortitude. Fortitude is 30 minutes of burpees and rowing. And again, those are at odds of each other. Total body pull, total body push. One bigger athlete focused, one smaller athlete focused. Really nice balanced test. And then the other one would be the Bergeron beep test, where fortitude is work capacity long for 30 minutes. Bergeron beep test for most people, not for Cole, but for most people is in that like 3 to 7 minute range. And it really tells a lot about a person in terms of their high intensity capacity. Whereas fortitude is like kind of like sustainable capacity.
Threshold, well-paced.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the ones I would want to know. Those 3 strengths, the 2 cardio, and the 2 capacities.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you both. Thank you to Mark for that great question. We're going to be back with our cool down. We're going to do a recommendation roundup. But first, a quick word of thanks from a few more sponsors. We're brought to you this week by The Perfect Jean. I got a pair of jeans from The Perfect Jeans a few months ago, and I have no notes. They're the best pair of jeans I've ever worn. I've worn them pretty much every day since I've got them. All other jeans are backup singers compared to these bad boys.
That's amazing.
Don't waste your money on subpar denim, my friends. Head to theperfectjean.nyc to see their styles and get yourself a pair or 5. Make sure you use the code excellence to save yourself 15% off. If you're listening to this show, your preferred clothing is likely a pair of sweatpants, but alas, the rest of the world just isn't ready for athleisure all the damn time, at least not yet. So until it is, get yourself a pair of jeans that are so comfortable you could do burpees in them. Not that you'd want to do burpees, but you know what I mean. The Perfect Jean offers multiple fits in a bunch of different wash types, so no matter your personal style, you'll find a great fit. So stop going to the mall and start wearing The Perfect Jean. Go to theperfectjean.nyc, use code excellence to save yourself 15% off, and never wear uncomfortable pants again. We're also brought to you this week by Bond Charge. Years ago, I was preparing to film somebody try to run through Death Valley in July, and to prepare, they suggested I get acclimated to the heat by doing regular sauna sessions. I had to find a gym that I was not a member of with a sauna and actually leave my apartment multiple times a week to do this. If only I had had a Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket. If only. Even if you're not preparing to watch somebody run through Death Valley, you can now also take advantage of this wonderful addition to your wellness routine, all from the comfort of your own home. Learn more by going to bondcharge.com. Make sure you use the code excellence to save yourself 15% off your purchase. The Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket provides all the benefits of a regular sauna from the comfort of your home and at a fraction of the cost. It uses infrared light to heat the body directly and raise your heart rate, which can help you burn up to 600 calories in just a single session. Sweat out heavy metals and toxins, boost circulation for clearer, brighter skin, and relax your mind and body to improve sleep and lower stress. For a limited time, you can get 15% off when you order from bondcharge.com and use our exclusive promo code excellence at checkout. The discount applies site-wide. Plus, you'll also get free shipping and a 12-month warranty. So go to bondcharge.com and use the code excellence for 15% off. That's BONCHARGE.com. Use the promo code excellence. All right, our cool down gentlemen, we're going to do a recommendation roundup where we just give folks out there something that we've been enjoying, something we've been listening to, watching, reading, doing, etc., that we feel like is worth sharing. Cole, you're our guest. I'll let you go first.
Cool. Yeah. Mine really lands on the connect front, and something that I've come into in this season of life is just a little bit more pressed for time than I once was in my 20s. And I was able to spend exuberant amount of time in order to connect with people, and something that I have found very useful, a very useful tool for me in being able to connect people deeper and quicker, is to ask them to go for a walk with me. Go out, go move with me. Let's get together. This is actually something that I found and started to explore with my wife. Ben can attest to this. We have been adamant walkers for many years, for all 10 years of our marriage. And the depth of conversation has always been much better when we're walking and we connect well. So I started to do that with other people and say, hey, you want to go talk about something? You want to go dive into something? You want to make some decisions? Let's go walk together and let's connect on it. And there is a good amount of science that indicates reasons why. And I have really been enjoying exploring that.
Brilliant. I love that. I will give mine. I have recently been listening to a podcast, and it's a slightly, they're not doing it anymore. It was a limited run podcast. It was by, I don't know if you guys remember or paid any attention to this, but sometimes maybe 6 months ago, there was a writer's strike in Hollywood. And so basically like no movies were made, no TV shows were made. Basically everything stopped. Yeah. And at some point during that, the 5 late night hosts, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, and Seth Meyers, got together and made this podcast called Strike Force 5. It was 12 episodes. They only did it, and they did it so that they could raise money to pay their staffs. So that was the whole thing. It's like they got sponsorships. The sponsorships paid for their staffs because they weren't working, etc. I cannot explain to you how funny this podcast is. I have never laughed at any movie, any stand-up show, any other podcast. I've never laughed as hard, as consistently as I have it with this podcast. I'm like 7 episodes in. So there's only 12 total because the strike eventually ended and they went back to their real jobs, which
Strike Force. Got it.
Strike Force 5. I am so bummed that this podcast just doesn't exist forever. Like every week, it would be the only thing I listen to. I was downstairs vacuuming and doing dishes the other night, and I was laughing so hard that my kids were like, "What are you doing?" There were points where I was like, I couldn't move. I was like on the floor laughing. It might be like that's exactly my sort of flavor of humor, but man, I am not kidding when I say that I have not ever laughed at anything harder than this show.
Yeah.
How long are the episodes?
They're like an hour each.
Wow.
So it's, it's normal.
All right, I'm in.
And it starts off like really weird because they don't know what they're doing. But by if you only listen, jump to episode 5. Jump to episode 5 if you only want to do one.
Cool.
I was in tears in that one.
Love it.
Very cool.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, mine. Wow, this is weird. Mine's a hybrid of yours. The two are yours. Okay. So wait for it. It was a podcast. And the people hosting the podcast were walking with their guests.
Oh my God.
I crap you not. This is for real. It was Tim Ferriss. Okay.
I've listened to that. So which one did you dip into?
So my answer is I've gotten back into the Tim Ferriss podcast, which I haven't listened to in, I don't even know, 7 years, something like that.
Yep.
But the thing that got me back in was his walking podcast with Seth Godin.
Yeah.
Of course I thought of you, Patrick, because like you're the
I think he did one with Greg McEwen from Essentialism as well. I think he did another walking one with him.
Okay, so I listened to that one, and then I started listening to like Reed Hastings and Reed Hoffman, and like I just pulled me back into the Ferris
ecosystem,
the Ferris wheel.
Are they?
You see what I did there? Yeah,
yeah.
But it was really good. It was like that podcast was awesome. First, Seth Godin is so brilliant, so witty, so unique. He is the purple elephant, So it's like
purple cow, but
purple cow. Thank you. Yes, he is the purple cow.
Purple elephant. Am I missing something?
Well, what's a purple cow? Yeah,
something you got to talk about.
So it's his idea is the purple cow is like if you see a purple cow on the way home, you can't not talk about it. So that's what brands should be doing, is turning themselves into purple cows. Anyway, like the podcast was phenomenal and just got me back into the whole Ferris ecosystem type thing.
Do you know
listened to a few of them?
Was the whole purpose of him walking with his
It's just what you're talking about. It's like
no kidding. That's amazing.
It's a healthy thing. It's first off, it's healthy, but also it's a new way to it's a maybe more meaningful way to connect with people and have better conversation.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you have a sense, were they together walking and recording, or were they separate?
No, I'm fairly certain that they were together.
Okay, I couldn't figure that out, and I have no idea. I have no reason to.
That'd be so weird if they weren't together. If they went for a walk virtually, I didn't even think of that.
No.
Well, you can do. I think you can do. I mean, he was recording it virtually, so I imagine like Seth was walking somewhere and Tim was walking somewhere, and they just called each other and recorded. I have no idea how they did it. You want to start? We'll start doing that. Ben. We'll do walking, chasing excellence episodes.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Cole, always good to talk to you. I love having you here. We will definitely do it again soon. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody out there for listening. Thank you for your questions. Again, www.chasingexcellence.email. Get on the newsletter list. You will learn more about what we're doing here, what we've got coming up, and you can also submit questions for future episodes. Harley just entered the party. Thank you everybody out there. Ben and I will be back next week for a new episode of Chasing Excellence.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Wait.
All right, you can't hear. You can't hear. Here you go. Now you can hear.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. There you go.
Oh, that's loud.